Our keynote speaker today is Tom Andriola, California, as VP of IT Services and CIO in 2013. He oversees the IT function, helps guide system-wide technology initiatives, manages technology needs for the Office of the President, and provides leadership for the development of long-term strategic vision. He also plays a key role in exploring opportunities for achieving system-wide efficiencies through shared services and developing technology innovations. Tom has promoted collaboration across the University of California as a strategy, a culture, and a community. We are delighted to have him kick off today's event. Thank you. Come on in, Tom.
All right, good morning. How's everyone doing this morning? Monday morning, back for it again. Yeah, here we go. Okay. If my jokes don't go over, Andre told me that he's got a laugh packet that'll play, so don't feel like you have to laugh at my jokes. All right. We're going to cue this up, and I'm going to come out with you guys because I don't do well behind the podium. Okay, so first of all, really want to thank all of you for the opportunity and to Julian and Andre to be here. It's always a lot of fun for me to be able to come out to the campuses and the med centers and to be able to kind of talk about just what's going on across the entire system. You know, I feel like I have this incredibly fortunate role that I get a chance to travel around the UC system, all the campuses, the medical centers, touch some of the research institutes, and really look at how technology is impacting the way that we help students get their education, the way that we push the boundaries of research, how we take care of patients, how we serve the public. More and more, I'm also talking about the impact that California gets in its economy from the University of California. And so I like to say that, you know, my role, while I sit up at that incredibly controversial place we call Office of the President, my role is really to be an advocate for everything that you're doing here at the local level. And I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to tell some stories, okay? I'm going to apologize because I'm going to have to walk up here and just advance the slides. But I love what you guys have chosen for, you know, kind of the message here, right? The whole concept of collaborate. And, you know, the tagline to me is even more impactful and shows how long we've come in the last few years, which is, you know, resources you can use to thrive at UC. Not just at UCLA, but at UC. And I think that's part of the message here is that we're part of this huge community. I'll start with just talking about, I think what everybody kind of in this room understands is that, you know, higher education's at a kind of a challenging period at the moment. A lot of different pressures. It's on the publics a little bit, maybe more than the privates in terms of really understanding how do we continue to grow the number of students that we can take on at our campuses. The state is divested in some of its funding levels, so it just makes it really, really challenging. And more, you know, the demand for technology continues to go up. They want us to bring technology to bear to help become more efficient and manage the costs and keep things more affordable. At the same time, we get those requests to kind of come out and have conversations about how we take on these new educational, you know, pedagogy techniques to advance, you know, how we interact with students and flip the classrooms and active learning environments. We get pulled into research conversations with respect to how we advance the science through big data. You know, on the patient side, it's no different, you know, if you go down to the medical center here. So the concept of that, you know, higher education is under a lot of pressure, but it's also looking to its technology community to bring more solutions to the table, which I think makes it really exciting for us in terms of the role that we play is becoming more visible and more strategic. Now, sometimes IT people don't want more visibility, but, you know, the reality is that our role is becoming more strategic. And when I talk to our university leaders, they talk about that we need IT to really be at the table for the important conversations. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the University of California as a whole, right? In terms of what we really mean to the state of California. I was just in Europe 2 weeks ago at the invitation of research universities in Germany. And what they really wanted to hear about was the collaboration across the University of California. Around the world, when you talk about higher education, everyone knows UC. Everyone knows UCLA, and not just for their sports teams, also for the research and education excellence that goes on. And so they wanted to hear, how are you making this collaboration thing work? And I say, well, let's start talking about the big picture here. California has got 40 million citizens. We just crossed the 40 million mark. That would make us a medium-sized EU member. just to put it on scale. And they were kind of freaked out when I said that that's how big California is. Because I think everybody knows California, but they don't necessarily know the demographics of California. If we were our own separate country, which I think sometimes we wish we were, then we would be the 5th largest economy on the planet. Right behind Germany, actually. And based on what I saw, I think we got a really good shot at getting to number 4. And so, you know, we have this incredible agricultural role that we play. Again, it's not just about Silicon Valley and the entertainment industry. It's about 70% of the fruits consumed in the United States come out of this state. A third of the vegetables come out of this state, right? We export a lot of that. We have one of the most diverse populations of anywhere in the Union. And that certainly comes to bear on what we see on our campuses and what we see hit our medical centers. And we have our share of challenges as well. You may not know this, right? But while we make up 12% of the total US population, we have a quarter of the homeless population of the United States. Now, it just shows you that while we have, kind of big opportunities, we have big challenges in front of us as well. And the last line is, the Europeans all look at Americans. They all think we still drive big gas-guzzling cars. I'd like to put them out that while we haven't kind of reached the pricing of gasoline that Europe has, we're pretty darn close and closer than anybody else in the United States. The other thing about what University of California means to the state, and I could give you lots of examples, is that the fact that we are research universities means that we're pushing the boundaries of different domains that lead their way into stimulating our economy. Whether you talk about our role and this campus's role in the beginning of the internet, if you talk about the telecommunications revolution, the IT revolution, the nanotech revolution, a lot of it starts here that stimulates the economy, and why today California would be the number 5 ranked economy in the entire world by GDP. I think we all know about our Nobel laureates from across the university, but did you know that we file about 5 new patents every day at this collective university? When people hear that, when the venture capitalists hear that, their minds are blown that there's that much innovative thinking going on across our university. And of course, those last 2 in terms about the economic mobility engine that we generate in terms of the first generation students and the opportunity for people to pull them up from lower income levels, have better social mobility. I think everyone here understands that very, very well. So, we are an important engine to this state on a lot of levels. A lot of the success, even though we have a challenging relationship with the state at this particular time, I think when you really dig down in terms of what this university means, it's not just an opportunity for someone to get an education. It is really something that's bettering the life of every Californian by what it brings. This is a picture that I love to use to talk about. This is also what we are at the University of California. We like to say it's like, well, we're not Michigan with 1 flagship. We have 10 flagship universities, right? So what better image than to use an image of ships to say, this is also us. We're not one collective university. We are under a system. We have 1 board of regents. But in reality, just in that picture, each boat represents one of our campuses. They have their own mast, some bigger than the others, their own crew, some larger than their other. And, in a lot of ways, they have their own kind of strategy. They have their own game plan. That's not something to argue. That's something to recognize and figure out how to leverage and thrive through. And so, really the concept of collaboration is really about finding about what is common, rather than focusing always on how we're unique, which we are, and I celebrate. We also have things in common. And I'll talk a little bit about, how we knit that together as a system by not challenging the uniqueness, but leveraging it and actually turning it into something that is an advantage to us in terms of helping every campus and every medical center thrive in terms of what they do from an IT perspective, right? So while we are unique, we also have a lot in common. We all have students. We all have to support research. 6 of us have medical centers and patients we have to look at. Right? You can't change the genetics, right? If you look at if you're in the field of genetics, you can't change the genes, but you can change how the genes express themselves. And I think that actually analogy works for us. Is we're not trying to change the DNA of the University of California, but we are trying to say, well, we can express our behaviors differently. And then the other one is, and I'll talk about this for a little bit this morning. Community and culture is much more important strategy in our world. I've come to the conclusion that I don't believe in an IT strategy. University has a strategy. This campus has a strategy. The role of IT is to make sure that we are aligned in principle and in activities to that strategy and that mission, and not that IT has to have its own separate thing. And so I tend to focus on community and culture more so than strategy. But I'll show you how we tie that together. So when you think about those 10 ships, they're all different, they're all unique. They may have different colors, different uniforms that they wear on their ships. But there's some things that they would never argue on the ocean. And that we call that true north. None of those ships will argue which direction is north. And for us, north is the mission. It's about what we do with our students. It's about our supportive research, patient care, the community service, and our responsibilities to the state. And so that's how we bind ourselves together. And the things we talk about underneath there are common enough across all of us in terms of our role in cybersecurity, our role in research, our role in education, financial sustainability, keeping this university affordable for all people, investing into our community of people to ensure that our skills and talents continue to grow and enhance. So these are things that the CIOs, when they come together, they don't argue over. It's all true north for us. And then the foundation underneath those pillars of strategy have to do with our community. The things that we do to invest so that the collective of the IT function across the University of California is something that we can take advantage of. And so you'll have an opportunity in the back here, if you're not connected into things like the blog, if you're not using Slack today, though the Slack count is 6,700 people utilizing Slack as a platform across the entire UCs. We have teams and channels doing all sorts of interesting things with that. But it's this concept of community that we want to tap into. You know, if you're familiar with the book Good to Great by James Collins, you know, there's a concept in there. It's called the genius of the ant. And here's the wonderful thing about our IT community, UC IT community, is we're not asking people to lose their identity as being, you know, from UCLA campus or part of this academic unit. It's I'm part of this academic unit and I'm part of this broader community called UCIT. He calls it in his book, the genius of the ant. And that's kind of what we're tapping into here, is that we can be a part of a larger community to serve. And so I'm going to talk about that community and the culture, right? I'll call it the expression of the DNA that we want to take advantage of. And one of the things, you know, because if you know anything, a little bit about my background before I came here, I've only been here 5.5 years. So, you know, about the 10-year mark, they dropped the, you know, the subtitle of newbie in higher education. So I'm halfway there, right? But one of the things I recognize is that, you know, we have a tremendous amount of kind of distributed activity, right? CIOs are supposed to be the champions of centralization. I don't know if you've ever heard this, right? But I'm not a big believer in centralization. It works in some scenarios. It also doesn't work in some scenarios. And as I got here, I'm like, you know, we can't be something we're not. But I do know this, having worked with world-class companies, I've had global responsibilities and run teams on 4 different continents over the course of my career, is that while, and I'll use this term we use in higher education, right? May 1,000 flowers bloom in higher education. I'm sure many of you have heard that, right? The reality is that truly great organizations learn how to take innovation to scale. What they do is they take that local innovation and they figure out how to get more people to take advantage of it and benefit from it. That's what truly great organizations do. You know, whether you're talking about an Apple or whether you're talking about a Siemens, it doesn't make a difference what type of company, what industry you're talking from, is they do innovate, but they scale those innovations so that a greater number of people or customers can take advantage of them. And that's kind of how we had to figure out what to do there, because we have plenty of innovation going on. We're just not sharing it enough. And so, you know, when you talk about building a community, communities need connected fabric. They need something that binds them together. It'd be great to be able to have, you know, sessions like this and pull people out of their offices on a regular basis, to do it a couple times a week. But that's not realistic, right? We have opportunities to put ourselves together, cross-pollinate, meet new people. Hey, what are you working on? We've been struggling with that. Could you come over and talk to our team? But we needed also, the fact that we're in technology, take advantage of some of the digital platforms that are existing today. And so it's really funny, the Slack movement here at the University of California is something I wasn't all that excited about when they first brought it forward to me. Right? We have a very, very grassroots community here. So I can tell you that about 0 of the ideas that we've implemented here have actually come from me. It's come from all of you. I just happen to be a pretty good listener. And every once in a while, they put me on stage, give me a microphone, and I don't screw up too much. But the concept of Slack, I kind of said, I'm not sure it's the right type of thing. I'm not sure it's going to be something we're all going to gravitate to. And I said, yeah, but we've got like 500 people using it today across like 6 or 7 campuses. And I said, well, we have 8,000 people. So what? Came back 2 months later. Hey, we got 1,000 people using this platform. I said, so what? They came back 2 months later. We got 1,500 people using this platform. And I was like, holy moly, we got to invest into this thing. And so then we got, the ability for everyone within the University of California to be able to take advantage of a platform. And then something very interesting happened. More people started using it, but not just us. If you go today, I see librarians use it. I see people in research using it. I see instructional designers using it. I see faculty members kind of collaborating with us with it, people in the medical centers. I see all different types of people who touch the technology realm, not just, kind of core IT, but lots of distributed IT involved in it as well. And now we have 6,700 people using this platform, answering very simple questions every day, collaborating. So I see activities like, hey, has anyone done a search for a product like this? Anyone done an RFP? Can you send me that RFP? I see this spread of innovation and problem solving happening on a very, very real basis. The blog. And if you're not, how many people in the room know about the blog and are maybe signed up for the blog? Okay, so about maybe a little more than half the room. So it's getting better. It's getting better. So the blogs is what I call the story of us. Any community needs great storytelling. Right? If you think about even community in the sense of a town, a village, how things got passed down, how things become folklore, it's all about telling stories. How'd you figure out, where you should buy your next automobile? Someone told you a story about a great deal that they got, so you went to that dealership. So this concept of how do we become a stronger community is how do we tell the stories of what everyone is working on? And so that's kind of how the blog started. It started with, I was traveling to campuses and I'm like, hey, came across some really interesting, cool stuff that our community is doing. Let's do an article on it. What it's evolved into, though, is all of you sharing what you're doing. We just become kind of the capture point. And I call it the story of us. Every week, we put up a couple stories about interesting things going on in IT at the University of California. The variety of things that we get is just amazing. And what happens is that, people read the articles, they're like, you know what? We've been talking about this for a couple of years. Why don't we reach out to that person and find out what they did? Maybe they'll get on the phone with us and talk to our team, right? Sometimes it's just recognizing people's work. There's a lot of work that we do that sometimes doesn't become very visible. And this is a way to tell those stories, right? And so if you look at this community, if you collectively count it up, it's 8,000 IT professionals across the University of California. That counts all the central units, all the distributed units, stuff going on at the med center, IT people sitting in research labs. It's about 8,000 of us that we've been able to count from an HR perspective. And that's a huge, huge set of people, and talents, and experiences to be able to take advantage of. I know a lot of IT companies that never get to 8,000 people. We have the ability to do a lot of stuff. And if we share what we're doing and we help each other out, we can do amazing things. And so you can see how the numbers have grown over time. I can't keep this slide accurate enough. 6,700 when I looked this morning on Slack. The blog, we're still only up at about 2,200. Big gap, big opportunity to give people the opportunity to tell stories and to hear stories that might be helpful to them. Coming out of the business world, it's really interesting. We have this concept in the business world called time to value. It's because customers don't like to wait for what they want. And I would subscribe to everyone in this room that our stakeholders and partners across the campus don't want to wait for what we can bring them. So if I can work with what's going on at the Merced campus and they've got 80% of what I need, it is much better for me to grab that 80% and customize the last 20% to make it work here so that my stakeholder doesn't wait 9 months, but gets what they're looking for in 3 months. That's a better solution. That improves our reputation with the stakeholders and partners we have across our campuses. So that's the concept. It's really that simple. And the community gives us this broad access of people to be able to say, these people are doing similar things to what I'm doing at the other campuses. Maybe there's something they've solved that we're struggling with here. And the interesting thing is, the more we do this, the more other universities want to peek into what's going on at the University of California. And I'll share some examples as we talk about the community. So let's tell some stories about the community. I'll take from a couple different examples. There's probably a dozen I could tell, but I don't want to bore you for the day. But let's talk about research facilitation. We do $5.5 billion worth of research at the university. Let me say that number again, $5.5 billion of sponsored research at this university. Think about a large company, you know, if they do $5 billion worth of anything. We do a ton. All right. This picture represents something we call the research facilitation group. You know, basically it's hard to support research. It's challenging, changing dynamics. They're always pushing the boundaries of what we do in technology. I thought I understood big data working in healthcare. I come out of the healthcare industry, and then I talked to the astronomers, and I understood what big data really means. Right? So this room is really interesting because this is a workshop that they do every year. They're talking about advanced networking techniques. The person up in front of the room, Camille Crittenden, she's from Citrus. I don't know if you know what Citrus is, right? But Citrus is one of the great Davis Institutes. She's from the research community. She's not an IT person as we would traditionally think, but she's someone who's very close to the IT function, and she's running in the group. In that group, you will see members from every one of our campuses. You'll see a couple of CIOs in that room. You'll see people from Berkeley National Lab. It's a community effort. People learning from each other, sharing their experiences. What can we be doing together? Didn't exist 2 years ago. Today, we have a robust community that uses Slack. They get together a few times every year. There's a lot of cross-learning, a lot of cross-campus collaboration. Healthcare is a big part of our university. Between patient care and research, $13 billion come to this university through healthcare, taking care of patients, research around medical techniques. Health data is a huge topic, both in terms of opportunity, but also controversy because of, you know, the fact that it is protected data. I love this picture. First of all, there's two guys in the front. Okay, they're both hams, right? They're both social media, you know, personalities, love to take pictures of themselves. We got them to actually take a picture with other people in it for a change, right? But this is Dr. Atul Butte, San Francisco, Dr. Chris Longhurst, San Diego. Dr. Longhurst is a CIO, a clinically trained CIO. They're both doctors. Dr. Butte is an epidemiologist. And that is the lecture hall for the medical school at UCSD, where we ran Health Data Day. It was open to everyone, whether you had a healthcare system at your campus or not, but it was, what are the interesting things people are doing with healthcare data? And it was about a lot of sharing. Believe it or not, San Diego even invited the UCLA CIO to make a presentation on their campus. How's that for breaking down barriers, right? That wouldn't happen a couple of years ago. They actually even let me talk there. That definitely wouldn't have happened a couple of years ago. But it's this concept of, you know, sharing. What are you doing? Interesting. Share it with your colleagues. And don't just think about your colleagues in the next building or just across campus, but across the entire UC system. From this effort, which happened last summer, San Francisco has run a day-to-day. UCLA has run a day-to-day. San Diego is running their second day-to-day. San Diego has run a health hack. And in 2 weeks, I'll be back here facilitating a panel on something called AI in biomedicine, bringing together all of the interesting medical professionals who are using artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques to advance patient care, hosted right here. So it just shows you the more we connect with our colleagues, the more interesting things we come across, the more it makes sense to continue to talk. But again, it doesn't have to be a UC system, just a forum like this. I mean, UCLA is it's its own universe, man. I mean, it really is, right? You get over 1,000 IT people on this campus. We've counted them, and we probably missed 50%, right? So there's probably 1,300, 1,400. But just the opportunity to get together, to know your colleagues, just even to know your colleagues in different parts of the campus is challenging. Opportunities like this to get together, hear what people are working on, to share, is an opportunity to utilize that collaboration gene. One of our longer collaborative groups, been around a long time. We call it the Educational Technology Leadership Committee. Under the ITLC, ITLC stands for IT Leadership Council. It's when the CIOs come together. We talk every month. We meet a few times a year. But this group really looks at the whole ed tech space, and they've been working together for a long time. They collaborate on everything from sharing RFPs, what are your instructional designers doing, how many do you have at your campus, because we know we need more, but we can't justify it. One of the most impactful things that this group has done is they put together some kind of learning data and analytics principles that they came together on to talk about how do we think about learning data from the standpoint of using it to promote student success. What are some of the opportunities, but also sensitivities? That work was endorsed by the Academic Senate across the UC and is now being recognized across the country in terms of how to think about the utilization of learning data to advance student success. Just goes to show you, when you're big and powerful, people want to know what you're working on. They want to look in. They want to learn from us. It's not just the University of California impacting the relationship with Elsevier. We are doing the same thing in our space, and we all have an opportunity to participate in that. So I mentioned a little bit about this concept of time to value, right? And here's a great example. Down in San Diego, we have something called Cal IT2, some of the best telecommunications networking people that we have within the system. They have a lot of toys at Cal IT2. So one of them is this concept, they call it the Wave, but it's this virtual reality kind of setting where you put the headset on and they've got the, all the monitors, kind of lined up together, and you can have these virtual experiences. Merced wanted one. Merced took the design, they built their own, right? And I call it share, copy, make it my own, and go. And so they literally got this up running in a matter of months, which took California, or Cal IT2 down in San Diego, a couple of years to get the first one running. Why? Is because they learned off the backs of one of their colleagues. And again, from Merced's perspective, it's not a copy. It's their own. They built it, right? But they didn't have to start from scratch. And it just shows the example of how we can take advantage of what others in the system have done before us. On the healthcare side, we actually have a term for this. We call it point of the spear, where the 5 health systems work together very, very closely. They have conversations about strategic directions and how IT is shaping the patient care setting. They decide which ones, maybe they all want to do something, or maybe just 2 of them want to do something. And whenever, let's say those 2 do it, they do it in such a way that they all can participate in decisions and the other 3 can follow later. So I think of that as, we had to create a road to the future. The ones that went first, we made sure we helped them pave the road, so the ones that come later don't have as hard a journey. University of California is also a very, very it's a deep-rooted grassroots organization. It is not a top-down environment. It never has been, it never will be. Shouldn't try to make it something that it's not. And so you need leadership from within the trenches to be able to drive this thinking. It's not about, for me, from my role at Office of the President, trying to create and get you to buy into some vision. It's all about creating an environment for people to thrive and giving them the tools that they need. So 4 years ago, the CIOs, we talked about this and we said, we need something to develop our talent. If IT is becoming more strategic to the university's mission, how do we ensure that our people who are out there in conversations every day are equipped to handle those conversations, to think strategically, to shape the conversations? And so we came up with this concept of the UC IT Leadership Academy. It's a cohort-driven program. We utilize faculty from Haas School of Business up at Berkeley. Sorry about that. But it's great because people from all 10 campuses, all 5 academic medical centers send people every year. So this is great cross-pollination of people who go through a program together. And they come out really with being able, we give them a couple of new skills. One, how to be a better leader. How to just be a stronger leader, because it's all about leading people, whether it's your own team or people from across the environment that you work in. 2, how do you become a better innovator? How to become a stronger collaborator? How do you take advantage of this community? And then technology, most of what we bring to campuses, part of it's technology, but a larger part of it is the fact that we bring change. It's why we run into the resistance, is that we're bringing a change to the environment. Things are going to be different for me tomorrow, and that is scary for me. And so how are we equipped to be able to handle the fact that we are bringing change to people's environments? Those are skills, just like anything else, just like understanding how to code in Python or R. These are skills that you can learn. And so we've kind of put these things to practice, and we now have the academy available for us that we try to run 1 cohort a year to really prepare the leaders from across the campus to be able to use technology in a more strategic way. This has been a lot of fun to watch develop over the last 5 years. Used to be called UCCSC. Every year it's run at a campus. So Santa Barbara has it this year. So it was their prerogative to change the name. So they decided to call it UC Tech to align to the name UC Tech, which is our Slack environment. So it's now called UC Tech 2019. It's at Santa Barbara in July. We're expecting between 600 and 700 professionals from across our environment. We'll have the largest healthcare component that we've ever had at one of these sessions. Last summer, maybe some of you went, was in Davis. But it's a great opportunity for a few things. One, it's a great opportunity for a large number of our community to come together. We really don't have a forum where we have anything larger than this. It's hard to get 8,000 people together, though I would love to try to do it one time. We might have to take Pauley Pavilion for that. But it's hard to get the number of people together. But this was about 250 people when I got here today. We're running between 600 and 700 people. That's a heck of a party. 2, it happens at a campus. So that means that campus gets to show how they're unique. They get to show off their flagship in their unique way. And for some people, they come up to me and they say, Tom, I've never, last year, I've never been. I've worked for the system for 15 years. I've never been to Davis. Right. And I think it's great that we get to kind of see each other's environments and see how we're the same and how we're different, celebrate that. And so this year should be a lot of fun. I'm bringing my beachwear to Santa Barbara. Hope to see a lot of you there. And again, the concept is how do we do more together? 2020 will be here. So if you haven't volunteered for the planning committee, I know they still need a lot of help. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be a great opportunity for UCLA show off its unique and distinct personality. Sometimes I get accused of being just a little overly positive. It's just kind of my nature. I like to talk about the positives, but I also like to recognize that there are challenges. I understand. I've been in, a large part of my career in IT. I understand the challenges that come with our environment, the budgetary constraints, the inability to always get the talent that we want. I talk to groups sometimes about people who want to be CIOs, and I always show them this picture. Right? Because if you want to be a CIO, you got to be comfortable with this. That the boulder, you can be pushing up the boulder, up the mountain, with your elbows, while on your knees, right? And the reality is, I say this to all of you, no matter where you are in your career, as you move to the next level of your career, the boulder just gets bigger. It's not that the boulder ever goes away. There's no magical thing. It's like, well, once you're a CIO, all these problems go away. It just gets worse. So it's just the reality of it, right? I think that even speaks more to why to help each other, because our environments are challenging. I see so much volunteerism that kind of comes out to do the right thing, not because people, we're asking, and I'm very careful. It's like, we're not asking people to work extra hours. What we're asking people for is to tap into something they're very passionate about. And it never ceases to amaze me how people are willing to kind of give a little bit of their time, find time to say, I can get this done in 4 hours this month rather than 8 hours this month, because I really want to go contribute over here to something that's important in the mission, right? And so I think that's what's also great about having a very, very large community is we have this opportunity to really help each other. We're doing things that just really never really did before, and we're formalizing them. Like when we have challenges, I'll use the example of this campus, right? When Andrew Wismiller left the CIO role of the central IT AIS unit here, the vice chancellor of administration called me and said, we'd just love to have someone come in and just take a look at how things are running, or their opportunities before we go out and look for our next CIO. So I called a few of our CIO colleagues from other campuses, and they gave up a week of their time to come here, listen to a lot of people from across the campus, not just the central unit, but across the entire campus unit. We did 40 interviews over 3.5 days. And then we did a report out back to the provost and the VCA, just in terms of here's kind of our take. It wasn't a threatening thing. It was kind of like, we live in these worlds. We know how hard they are. Here's some of the things that we think might benefit the campus as they think about how to move forward, right? They give up a week of their time. Think about that, right? Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Why? Because they care about the success of the university, not just about their campus. And I just see that more and more happening. And I see it around happening at tech environments, network environments, research environments. I see it happen all over the place. I'll talk a little bit about innovation, but there's a lot of things I could talk about here, but, we kind of have this concept of, how do we bring, those 1,000 flowers and spread them? And I could take this part of the conversation a couple of different ways. I'll mention it, but I'm not going to go down this route. We actually have a fair number of things that have come out of our IT community where it's been so good that not only have other campuses adopted it, but we've actually been taking it to other universities or other medical centers and created enterprises around it, actually generated new revenues. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time around that, but what I do want to talk about is this, right? What do we mean when we say let 1,000 flowers bloom, but take it to scale? And I'll tell a story. It's kind of a stupid little story, but it's stuck with me for a long time. It happened with my younger son when he was 9 years old. He played for a baseball coach. And the coach said to his kids at the beginning of the year, he said, my goal for you is to make you 1% better each week. And he goes, and if you commit to that and work hard, by the end of the season, you'll be surprised at how much better a player you'll be. And I was like, interesting way to explain it to kids, right? And it stuck with me, right? And here at the University of California, if you think about the impact of 8,000 people all trying to get just 1% better, that is far more impactful to any one leader trying to paint the vision for where we're going. First of all, we don't work that way, right? We're a very grassroots effort. And so, the question really became, how do you take in 8,000 people and put them in a position to get 1% better? That's what we're looking for, whether it's for the campus, whether it's for the med center, whether it's for the system. How do we help people create an environment for 1% better? And the concept is we have a lot of people come to work every day and they're doing something, right? How do we put them put them on the, hey, it's not just about doing what I'm supposed to do. It's about how do we do it a little bit better. Maybe we do it a little bit faster. Maybe we automate it. Maybe there's someone over at a different campus that has figured out how to automate this. And so how do we turn every employee into an innovator? And then those unique opportunities where we might be able to turn them into what I call an intrapreneur. That's where we take someone who's developed an innovation that's so good that we actually get them to get it adopted at other campuses and maybe even other parts of the higher education system, right? How do we stop focusing everything on efficiency and start focusing on creating greater value to the mission? Because the reality is we could all stay very busy just kind of keeping the lights on. But if we're going to become more strategic, and again, 8,000 people thinking this way, if we're going to become more strategic, we have to create the time to be able to be more strategic. Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the last chapter is dedicated to this. He calls it sharpening the saw. He uses the analogy, of a lumberjack. And that's like, and they said, I'm so busy, I just can't chop down this tree any faster. And then someone says, if you stop for a moment and sharpen the saw, you would actually saw it twice as fast, right? But how many of us in our daily activities find the time to be able to step back and say, can I do this in a more efficient way? Can I do it faster? Has someone already solved the thing that I've been struggling about? we had this, at Office of the President, the CIO there ran something called Innovation Week. I think it's almost 2 years ago now. It was really interesting, right? First of all, the managers all like hated the idea because what they thought was, oh my God, you're gonna give people a week to screw off and everything's gonna fall to pieces. And the reality is that didn't happen. People care about doing a good job every day. Oh, this is gonna cost so much money. We bought breakfast every morning. It didn't cost us anything. But what people did is we didn't put any constraints on what they worked on. We just asked them to come and think about innovating, think about making something that 1% better. And so beginning of the week, there were probably 6 teams. By the end of the week, there were 12 teams. Some of them didn't even work on IT stuff. They had like a crazy idea and they found collaborators. We didn't match teams up. It was like, I want to work on this. I want to automate, batch processing. Oh, you know what? That would be really great if we had that for our team. So they just self-organize. At the end of the week, we ran kind of almost like a science fair. Everybody kind of present their stuff. It was really cool. Some of the ideas got implemented, some not. What was interesting to me was someone came up to me and they said, Tom, just want to say thank you. And I said, what are you thanking me for? And they said, for the opportunity to innovate. And I said, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, we've been talking about doing this little automation thing for a couple of years. He goes, but she said to me, it was the fact that we got this opportunity to Innovation Week, we could actually sit down and do it. And, that really impacted my way, me, because it's like, sometimes and this is for the managers in the room, sometimes we just have to make it okay for people to stop just doing the same old thing and just give them a little bit of opportunity. There are a lot of techniques to do it. This CIO used Innovation Week. Irvine is doing this new kind of innovation program right now where it's a little bit more organized and formalized, but there are a lot of different ways to do it. But sometimes what we have to do is we have to give our people that little bit of space. They just can't create it for themselves. And I think that's a really, really important part of this whole kind of concept of how do we get that 1% improvement from every person across the system. Because I would say that 8,000 people all doing 1% more, we could do a lot of stuff. And I don't know if any of you have ever been in this situation or heard this comment made. I can certainly say I have made this comment, we in IT could do a lot more if they just got us involved in the conversation sooner. Anyone ever felt that way? Said those words? I have. Hi, my name's Tom. So, and here's my reaction to that. I put that on us first. It's because, we haven't positioned ourselves. Maybe we haven't made the time to be able to spend in the conversations to explain, why it's important to get that involved. Maybe we haven't been much strategic in our thinking when we've interacted with those stakeholders, right? But I put that on us, right? We have to create that space for us to be able to engage at a more strategic level. And it's not just for the CIOs to do, it's for all of us to try to do. It's for sometimes it's like, hey, they were having this conversation about implementing this, this new thing. And if they actually want to do it, we're going to have to upgrade the networks going into the, into the student labs. And they're like, just put your hand up and saying, hey, there's something going on over here that could be pretty strategic. We need to kind of get on top of this conversation, right? But it's all about 8,000 people, 1% better makes us absolutely more and more impactful to the mission. And I think if you talk to our leadership, they would say that they need this from us. So I'm going to wrap it up here and just say that, I feel very privileged, to have the role that I have here at the University of California. I get to come to forums like this, share a little bit about what's going on across the system, share stories that I think are valuable to help you, share your stories that will help others, and really encourage the system to be able to kind of step up and contribute more. It's just amazing all the things that we touch. I can tell you stories about what we do in the food and agriculture space that impacts the way that the food is grown and the way that students find their way to go into the food and ag industry. To talk to you about things that we do in research in many, many different topics where IT is so critical to be able for them to generate the data, collect the data, analyze the data, visualize the data. That it all comes back to what people in this room provide, either as an infrastructure or enabling capability. What we do for our students every day in terms of, and you guys are coming up on graduation here in a few weeks, the opportunities that we enable for them to go through, their years here and get their education and go out and contribute to society in a productive way. Think about the groundbreaking research and the role that we play for those 5 innovations and patents that we file every day. We're behind that, whether it's the network, whether it's the high performance computing environment. So I feel very privileged, to be able to be a part of that and really to help tell your story and be your biggest advocate. I'm with the chancellors a little later this week, and again, it'll be an opportunity for me to talk about some of the great things that we're doing. So with that, what can you do? Well, I think one is let this stuff simmer a little bit. Just in terms of some of the thoughts and some of the stories you've heard here, really think about that 1%. How could I do things 1% better? However, that's defined with your role. If we went across this room, there's probably 80, 90 different roles that you're playing across this campus. We certainly don't have standard job definitions here in IT. Figure out for your world what it means to leverage the collective intelligence of the community. Maybe you're using Slack today and you're connected into groups that are working on the same things as you, and maybe you're getting your questions answered. Maybe you haven't found your way there yet. Maybe there was a story in the blog last month that's exactly the space that you work in. I don't know. You just got to get out there. My job is to create the opportunity for you to lean in and join in. Whether you do it or not is completely up to all of you. That's the way we work around here. Share this message with others. You'll have these slides. I know we're putting this on Zoom. We'll figure out what to do with it. I'm always available to talk to groups in one way or another if you think that the others need to hear this message or couldn't be here today. So just share these messages and help us continue to expand. You saw some of the numbers there. We have a lot of space that we can still grow. We still think that the blog is underrepresented in terms of really being able to get out and tell the stories. We think there are more stories that we can tell. We think there are more people who are able to hear those stories. We do run every three or so times a year. We run what we call a UCIT town hall. We obviously do it over Zoom because we're all in different locations across the system. But it's this concept of a little bit about what's going on across the UC, what are a couple of interesting stories, and we usually try to bring one guest speaker. It's been in healthcare, it's been cyber related, it's been around diversity and inclusion the last time we did it. So we're always bringing kind of interesting things that we're connected into, and you're hear from sometimes IT people, sometimes from non-IT people, and then just keep trying stuff. I think that's so key. That we just continue to try. I still feel as a community overall, we're still too risk averse. We need to open up a little bit. Managers need to make it sure that their people understand it's okay to try stuff. If you work with faculty members at all, it's like they're trying stuff all the time. Their world is all about try and fail, try and fail. Hey, this finally worked, right? We need to have a little bit more of that, kind of mentality. Doesn't work everywhere. We don't want to, hey, let's try something right before student enrollment, right? So there are things obviously we don't want to take a chance on, but there's a lot more space that I think we can try things. And then the final thing is just find your way of leaning in and joining. This will never be top down. This will always be bottom up. It'll never be forced. It'll always be an invitation that's there for you. And whether you want to take that invitation today, next week, next year, it's there because this community is not going away. We've been around as a university for 150 years. UCLA, happy birthday, just around 100 years. And we're going to be here for each other a long time. That's one of the other really, really interesting things for me to think about is the longevity of this university and how to create a sustainable way for us to be able to collaborate. And I know people do this. You find your way to make a difference here at the university. Our students need it, our faculty need it, our patients need it, and the state of California and the world need it. So with that, thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to be here most of the day. I'll be hanging out in the back. Please come up, introduce yourself, tell me what you're working on. I want to hear what's going on in your world. Thank you. Okay, what's next?
Anyone have any questions?
You can ask a question now or just come grab me informally. It's all up to you.
We actually have our Slack channel going in case anyone wanted to ask questions, but so far.
How many nasty comments did I get? I saw one hand back here. Do you have a question you want to ask?
Yes. I want to go to your point about stopping to sharpen the saw. What sort of advice would you give to an individual that finds themselves in a situation where leadership doesn't want to or is unable to consider stopping?
In leadership, in this case, IT leadership or
Both.
both? Okay, yeah. This is where I think that community is important, right? Because we all find ourselves at different times kind of stuck, right? And the reality is as you rise in your career, those situations of being stuck get bigger and they get more complex to figure out routes around. What I would say is this: find your trusted advisors you can talk to about this and figure out strategies. It's kind of like, for me, I think of it like playing a chess game, and that there are an infinite number of moves. Sometimes we're not thinking broadly about where we might be able to go to find advocacy, that sometimes the moves, so it might be 3 or 4 moves to get to a better place. I can use a couple of examples, but I'll do it this way. Sometimes the strategy requires that you bring a third-party advocate, third-party voice into the conversation. This is what when we came here to this campus to kind of evaluate IT, it wasn't that the problems we came up with were new. It was the fact that a different voice was saying them to leadership had a different impact. And I'll be the first to say that wasn't necessarily fair to all the people who have been here. Just saying it was a strategy to get messages heard that maybe were just being blocked or muted before. Some of the most powerful things, and one of the things I love about what's going on, is how often, when a campus is talking about something or a med center is talking about something, they say, well, what are the other UCs doing? That's a great opportunity to say, well, why don't we bring them in to talk about what they're doing, right? So it's difficult. Being stuck is difficult for all of us. I think we have to be creative in terms of how do we figure out where our advocates are, and they might be broader than just in my department, just in my school, even just in my campus, and bring in subject matter experts. I do that a bunch, where if I feel like I'm stuck and they're just not listening to me, or they're not hearing me, how do I bring another voice that actually can make the same statement? And for whatever reason, we're human beings, we have our idiosyncrasies. It's just perceived differently. So, if you want to spend a little time talking about maybe your situation, maybe we can brainstorm some strategies. But we all feel it, right? It's not, none of us are immune to that situation. I even know CIOs who feel that way around certain topics at their campuses, that they feel blocked. And we just have to work together. And I think that's part of having that kind of peer group to say, has anyone had this issue, gotten around this issue? Yes.
Thank you for that thought. It's really, I wanted to apply to the IT Innovator Leadership Council, but I'm kind of curious, has there been any thought about establishing an each of these campuses so that there's a local leadership?
Yeah. Great question. So first of all, about your first part, each of the CIOs owns the nominating their typically 2 people that come from their campus or med center for each cohort, right? So it's left to the local CIO to manage, which has some good aspects and some negative aspects of that, but we'll leave it at that. That's how people get into the leadership academy. We have seen certain campuses, because again, we're very distributed, right? Each campus has talked about, and some have moved on creating their own kind of local leadership effort. Some of them have built upon things, kind of the principles and the competencies of the leadership academy. Some have gone off in a somewhat different direction. In both cases, I think it's awesome, because again, I've never been with any organization that said they had enough leadership, right? So I think it's all about the investment into people. And sometimes what I see here at the University of California, we talk about the investment into students, we talk about the investment into faculty, we underrepresent in the conversation the investment into people. And I put that on our leadership, right, is that there's no such thing as I don't understand the phrase, we don't have money in our budget for development. I think that's a ridiculous statement, and again, not respecting sharpening the saw. How can you get to anywhere better without investing into the people? So, I know here at UCLA, with campus not having a CIO, I don't think there's been conversations here locally. It's not that I'm aware of. But, I know, Berkeley's doing something, Irvine's doing something, San Diego's doing something, Santa Barbara's doing something. So we have had a handful of the campuses develop their own kind of local leadership program that is designed around what they want to focus on. Yeah.
2 questions from the Slack channel.
Cool.
Both from Annalie Rugg from Humanities Tech. First one.
Annalise from this campus.
I know, but she's coming in late.
Oh, okay.
So she's coming later. But she could this morning. So.
Okay.
It's nice that we have the Zoom.
Yeah.
If we have an innovation that we'd like to scale, i.e. bring to interested campuses, what is the step that makes the difference between those ideas that gain traction and those that don't?
Well, if I had the answer to that, yeah. I don't have an answer about, kind of here are the things that, do these 10 things that it'll work and do these 10 things that will fail. I wish we could bring it to something that's that clear of a playbook. We're not there. I think we've learned some things across, and we've also had some of the ones that have been more successful peer mentor, those that think they have something that can get there. The reality is that it's tough. If you're doing something here at UCLA and you want to get it adopted at Santa Barbara, that's like selling a customer. You might as well be selling it to the University of Michigan or University of Virginia. We haven't developed a kind of a preferred status. It's like, oh, you guys have figured out how to do it. Yeah, we'll just take it. No problem. And we're not there yet. I don't think we'll ever be there, right? I think it has to always be vetted. I think with the collaborative fabric we have, I think there's more of a, well, we'd be interested to look at that. Let's sit down and have a conversation, right? So I think the door is open to sit down and have a conversation. Ultimately, it comes back to, is the innovation serving a need that's exists at that campus? And then can it be served up in a way where the others can easily adopt it? And again, we're seeing more and more examples of this. There were a handful of examples when I got here. I think we have, maybe 2 to 3 times the number of examples now. But we also just have more sharing going on, right? So I would say, they could start with me in terms of a conversation, and once we kind of understand the context, we may have kind of a peer mentor for them to be able to work with and think through it. Yeah.
The other question.
Okay.
Some of our best ideas for innovation are from entry-level or mid-level IT staff who have no funding or time and sometimes no support from their managers to bring their ideas forward. Is there any way to allow those staff to bring innovations forward?
Yeah, so this is where I think, having maybe it's a campus-wide strategy, but UCLA is so big, it might be something that's, at a school level. Having a way of unearthing those, right? Creating an environment where you can get those conversations elevated beyond where maybe there are some barriers. I also can understand it from an individual manager's perspective, is that, maybe my team is so understaffed that I don't want them distracted, right? Because there's so much that has to get done. I get that, right? But, good managers and good leaders figure out a way out of that box, right? If they want to get to the next level, they got to figure out how do I get in that box. Sometimes the best, and this is when CIOs talk about it, we'll talk about, I need to create kind of an innovation structure for those ideas to get outside of whatever hierarchical box that they might be in. Again, some do it in an informal. I mean, I've worked with CIOs, not here at the university, but other places, who are like those type of things. They have their like monthly, quote unquote, breakfast or whatever, and they like really invite people to come in and pitch those things right to the CIO and bypass the rest of the hierarchy, because in that case, he was concerned that those ideas weren't getting through the management structure. So I think it's about the leaders of the campus talking about, do we have an environment today that is stifling those things, and how do you create that? And again, it may be at a whole campus level, but it also may happen at a local level. I just think leaders have to think and be thoughtful about how do you untrap that stuff? Because it does. I mean, in large, complex organizations like we are, things get trapped. You got to figure out strategies to unearth that. All right, well, with that, I'll keep us on schedule. I'll be around. Love to hear from you, love to meet you, and thank you for the opportunity today.